So my opinion of her is top-notch. I'm not making a specific recommendation here, but she's the greatest.
LaRae Baker, Laura Coates, as well as Jason Johnson. Is it me? Are black folks afraid to publicly come out and say, Mr. President, appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court?
Roland, not only that, but I think black folk in general, I think a lot of Obama supporters are afraid to come out and just call this president on the fact that he should just appoint someone. Rather than sitting there and making a nomination, if the Republican Party just told you, we're not going to have a vote, we're not even going to call a hearing, then the president should say, I can't have the Supreme Court vacant until sometime next year. I can't let a President Clinton or Trump or Cruz pick the next person. He should just appoint someone during this recess. And I am very, very disappointed that he hasn't just taken that action, which is completely within his constitutional power.
And also, for the people who are at home, do understand that the president can make a recess appointment, and there is precedent.
Yes.
A previous Supreme Court justice was appointed as a recess appointment.
Exactly.
But I believe that person still only has a limited term. It's not a life term. So what he's trying to do is instill somebody not for the short run, but somebody in the long haul. I think that people.
But here's the deal, though, Laura. But Laura, here's the deal, though. If the Republicans are saying we're not even going to have a hearing, you're not even going to have a short term.
No,
right.
I agree. I think he should appoint somebody. But the other issue is that this is not going to be just one Supreme Court nominee. You're talking about over 2 or 3 of the seated Supreme Court justices are over 80 years old.
But not with President Barack Obama as president.
That's true.
That will be in the next president.
That's true, and I think he should do an appointment. However, I think your question was whether people were afraid to actually tell him that. I think the concern people have is that when you have such an obstinate Republican-run Senate, that they don't want their best pick to be wasted and just sit in isolation. Remember Loretta Lynch? She may be the greatest, but she sat for a very long time waiting for this Senate to actually
here's the deal,
care.
though.
If you appoint someone, you don't have that problem.
Here's my point.
That's true. That's true.
But here's my point. My point is, the Republicans have already made it clear what they're going to do.
Right.
What I'm saying is, why is it that black women's groups, why is it that civil rights groups have not publicly come out and said, we want to see a black woman on the Supreme Court? That's all I'm saying. And it's amazing how folks sort of dance around it.
Roland, I think you make an interesting point, because if you listen to some of the chatter from our social networks, if you listen from some of the chatter from men and women in our communities, it sounds very different than the civil rights groups you talked about, than some of the well-known and established black women groups you talked about, because there's an ardent chorus on some of our social media, and not just from folks who are just tweeting out nonsense, but people who are really well-thought-out human beings who are saying the president, it's the time now to appoint an African-American woman there. There's been an insistent call. And I do agree to your point, and to Jason's point in the larger extent, that many African-American supporters, particularly large institutional supporters of President Obama, are unwilling to be extremely critical of the president in ways that would advance African-American interests because of this idea of protectionism. This idea of
I'm gonna make this clear. I wrote this. This is on the route right now. I have been excruciatingly critical. I think more people need to be. The problem with this president, and Barack Obama's done great and wonderful things. Yes, we're obligated to always say that.
Hold up. President Barack Obama.
President Barack Obama's done some great and wonderful things. But the fact of the matter is, he spends so much time trying to be the bigger man, trying to negotiate with people who hate him. And this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This is an opportunity to protect affirmative action, to protect, all sorts of different kinds of rights and labor rights this summer, and rather than doing his job, he's deciding that he wants to try and play footsie again with the Republican Party, to the disappointment of everyone who ever supported him. And he should be called on that, because he should put a black woman, and he should appoint her right now.
I am a black woman. I'm a black attorney. I do want to see a qualified black woman in office. There are many of us out there, and there should be a black woman. However, the point is not just that he's being vilified or not vilified. The point is, he does have an extreme obstacle to overcome, and it's not him just being laissez-faire.
He's going to have the obstacle. He's going to have the obstacle, whether he appoints a black woman, an Indian American, an Asian, or white. But what I'm saying is this here: black women voted at a higher rate in 2008 and 2012. It would be an historic pick, and it would drive turnout in November that Republicans stood in the way. And what I'm saying is this here to black leadership: have the guts to actually say it and publicly, because you know what's going to happen? They were silent when Elena Kagan was appointed, and they complained after the fact. And so if it doesn't happen, they're going to be like, oh my God, we should have said something. Now, as Dr. King said, now is the time. Hold on one second. When we come back, we're going to